What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's been a couple weeks, but we're here with some MMA DFS picks, lineup advice, tips, best bets, you name it. FanDuel, DraftKings, UFC Vegas 41, Marvin Vettori, Paulo Costa. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, who haven't been joined by in a couple of weeks as we've had some pretty terrible cards and smaller cards, but now we're back to a bigger card, joined by owner of MMA DFS.com, writer of the Daily Plug at OccupyFantasy.com. Jake the Snake, what's up, man?
Oh man, good to be back. Feels like it's been like forever.
It's been like 2 or 3 weeks, and you and I have both complained about the sizes and the quality of the cards recently. And I think maybe an average UFC fan may complain about the quality of a card if they're a bunch of newcomers or low-level guys. But those are the fights we want, right? We don't want the boring old fighters. We're okay with a bunch of new names, and in this slate in particular, we have a lot of newcomers, some fighters making their second fight in the promotion, an interesting main event. So very good card from a DFS and betting perspective. I'm here to break it down for you. So what we're going to do in this video, we're going to talk about this main event, Costa versus Vettori, what it means for your DFS lineups, talk about all the newcomers on the card, their backgrounds, and what to expect from them. We'll highlight a couple fights that we want to target in our DFS lineups, give you one or two very unpopular plays that will take you to the top of your contest leaderboards, especially in tournaments. And then we'll finish off with our stream parlay that we're still trying to capture in 2021. So, Jake, let's start with this main event. Paulo Costa, Marvin Vettori. All this hoopla about the weight issues, the weigh-ins, whatever it may be. You and I were talking before the stream. We don't know really what it comes down to or what it means for the fight. All we know is the line has moved away from Costa, so it's probably not in his favor. What is your take on it, and how should we view this fight for our DFS lineups?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. We have a 185-pound fight that a couple days in advance, one of the guys is like, "Yeah, I'm not going to make weight," and it's like, not only am I not going to make weight, I don't even know if I'm going to be 10 pounds off. I might be 20 pounds off. So it's a new thing that we haven't had to deal with. I would say it adds some uncertainty for sure, but at the same time, it doesn't really change my take a whole ton. I mean, going in, I was already looking at Costa as a round one, round two KO or bust play. I still think he's that. It might make things slightly tougher on Vettori here, if anything. I mean, Vettori's, he's going to be at a slightly higher weight. He's a grappler. He was going to be looking for takedowns. It's going to be a little bit harder to take Costa down if he's bigger, potentially. I mean, that's kind of the one impact. But I don't think it makes a ton of changes. I mean, I was already worried about Costa's cardio after the second round. I still am. It adds a little bit of uncertainty. I mean, is Costa dealing with an injury? Is this strategic? I mean, we don't really know. So, I mean, I would say it adds some uncertainty for sure. So it makes it a higher variance spot. But in general, I'm approaching it the same way as I was before. You stack the fight in low risk contests on DraftKings. You play one of the fighters in high risk contests. I mean, at Costa's price, if he gets a finish, which is how he's going to win, he's going to end up in the optimal lineup. And Vettori has been absolutely crushing lately in his 5-round decision wins. He's got DraftKings scores of 156, 129, 125. He's priced at just 8,600. So if he wins, he's going to end up in the optimal as well, barring like a early round three, submission or something weird that somehow doesn't score well. So, I mean, yeah, we're looking at having pretty heavy exposure here in high risk contests, stacking in low risk contests. And, that's my take. I didn't change a whole ton with the weight. I don't know what your take is on the whole weight chaos circus act from Costa.
Dude, I have no idea. I'm not a weight management expert by any means, nor do I try to look too far into the UFC narratives. We try to look at what we can control and what we know from the outside. And what we know is that there's a pretty heavy fight to target in DFS, especially on the Vettori side. And I think you and I both prefer Vettori in this spot. Anyways, we're not in the business of predicting outcomes. We're trying to just gauge what will happen in a win for each fighter. And I'm personally a little bit higher on the Vettori side for DFS, but I completely agree that we treat this like your typical main event for low risk and high risk contests. So let's get into some of the more exciting fighters, at least for you and I, these newcomers. So we have 4 fighters making their debut. Some interesting spots. I'm going to pull up our Occupy model here at OccupyFantasy.com, which ranks every fighter on the card, FanDuel, DraftKings with projected ownership. And the first fighter, so Jacob, this is what we'll do. We have 4 fighters that are making their debut. What I'll do is I'll give you their name. You give me a quick summary of their fighting style, their background, and their chances in this fight. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay, first fighter, and I'm going in order of DraftKings salary. against their opponent. So David Onama against Mason Jones.
Yeah, so Onama, he took the fight on short notice. He's going against, one of the best fighters on the card, Mason Jones. Onama is a James Krause disciple fighting out at Glory MMA and Fitness down in Missouri. He's been on the Missouri regional scene. I think we should question who he's been fighting in terms of his competition. But I mean, I'm not saying they're necessarily the worst ever, but I don't think he's been facing the stiffest competition. But he is 8-0. He's got 5 KOs, 3 submissions, has never been to a decision. I would say he's pretty much a one-dimensional striker. He has a decent guillotine choke, but he's not going to grapple. And if he gets on the ground, I think he's going to be in trouble. So he's kind of a power puncher with a Hail Mary guillotine chance to win. Super, super tough matchup against Mason Jones here.
Yeah, I mean, not the spot you want to be in your first fight. As we talk about on this show, you talk about in the plug, you talk about on MMADFS.com. Generally, we like to look at fighters in their second fight, especially if they're fighting a newcomer. A little preview there of what's to come in this video. And so maybe we'll look to target Onama in his second spot. Very tough matchup in his first go around in the UFC. All right, the next fighter making their debut, Maria Oliveira against Tabitha Ricci.
Yeah, so I would say Oliveira is one of these fighters that doesn't belong in the UFC. We get these people that come along every once in a while, some of the Alaskan fighters that you're just like, how did this person make it into the UFC? So Oliveira has this insanely padded record. I think she has 2 wins in her career over people that have winning records, and those came against 1-0 and 2-0 fighters. She's just, I think, so the combined record of her 12 opponents is 8-17.
What?
And whenever she has fought anyone that's decent, she has just gotten murdered. So she's 2-2 in her last 4 fights, has been finished in both of those losses. One of them was Marina Rodriguez in the Contender Series Brazil, in fairness, but still, I mean, it just shows that when she goes up in talent, she has no chance. So she looked especially terrible on the ground and really vulnerable to armbar submissions, which is pretty interesting now that she's going against an armbar specialist in the judo Tabitha Ricci fighter. So yeah, I can't get behind Oliveira here. I think she's the worst fighter on the card.
Very fun. More on Ricci to come later. All right. Daniel Da Silva. I feel like this is one of the guys you're a little bit higher on making their debut against Jeff Molina.
For sure. So Da Silva's a grappling specialist. He looks really good. He's 11-1. He's got 10 round 1 wins. Another in round 2. He has never been past the second round. His one loss came from like a freak arm injury that I don't think we should really hold it against him. He's got 5 KOs, 6 submissions. He's really looking for ground and pound when he gets people down, or to throw up different submissions off of his back so he can finish fights either way, but really looking to get fights to the ground. Super dangerous guy. I'm excited to see what he has in the UFC. I mean, sometimes these plays just completely fall on their face, and other times, they transition well, and I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, I want to temper my excitement just because we've seen this spot fail so often with guys that look great coming in, and it just doesn't pan out, but I think he's got a ton of potential.
I mean, at least it's the type of fighter that would score well in DFS, right? Trying to get it to the ground and pound is what we're looking for high DFS scores. So, if you're looking for underdogs, most of the time, if you can just find one reason to play an underdog, you're going to do it. And Da Silva meets that criteria, and he actually ranks higher in the occupied model, which you see on screen here, than his opponent, Jeff Molina, which is generally a good indication of his upside. All right, and the final fighter making their debut, Zviad Lazishvili. God bless him. He is making his debut against Jonathan Martinez on short notice, but I was surprised. I guess I was just giving the scenario. I was surprised that he was the favorite to open. He's still the favorite slightly. Lines moving in Martinez's favor, but some respect coming from a short notice debut.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone was a little surprised at the opening line, which is probably why it has moved so much. Everyone saw Martinez as a big dog, and they're like, oh, yeah, I'll take that value. We got a short notice guy. I mean, those fighters normally fail. But I think Zavad, he's in I wouldn't say he's in the best spot, but he looks like a really promising prospect, similar to Da Silva. So he's a grappling specialist, doesn't offer much on the feet. But he's got a chance for a bunch of takedowns. He's one of these Georgian grapplers. He does have a super padded record. So depending on where you look, he's either 8-0 or 12-0. and all but his last two fights
Either
came
one,
against
8-0 or
fighters.
12-0, just depends.
Depends on where you look, man. He was on like the Georgian scene, and I don't even think people know how to track for those fights. So his first, up until his last two fights, all of those fights were against fighters that had never fought professionally before.
Oof.
So you got to take all those wins with a grain of salt. But his last two wins, convincingly won. One of those was a decision, I believe, and one was a submission. Super slick on the ground. This guy has really good submissions, but not a very good striker. You know, Martinez isn't terrible, has never been submitted before. So it's another spot where, you know, this guy looks promising, looks like he could score a ton, but it's also possible he just, you know, his skills just don't translate to the UFC. So it's a similar spot to De Silva, honestly, except for he's a favorite and De Silva's an underdog. But I mean, in reality, I would say both guys have probably similar chances of winning despite the odds.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's fair to say. So that there's the four newcomers for this slate. Be sure to check out the write-up, MMADFS.com, daily plug, and be sure to check out the Occupy model, which ranks every fighter on the slate. You can sort by all the key indicators. Very important if you're making tournament lineups or low-risk lineups for UFC DFS. All right, let's bring up the daily plug. And Jake, in the daily plug, you talk about fights that you want to target both sides of in tournament lineups. Give me one or two fights that you think either side of the fight could produce a high score.
Yes, I've got two that I really like. So the first one is the De Silva Molina fight. I mean, I think if De Silva comes in and he's able to do what he was doing on the regional scene, I think he absolutely smashes here. Really good chance he gets a round one finish, either through ground and pound or with a submission. And if it doesn't work out, then I think Molina has a big ceiling. And I mean, Molina went absolutely nuts in his UFC debut. He landed 127 significant strikes in the third round, just the third round.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying we expect to see that again, but it shows this massive ceiling that you're not going to get very often. So if we get two guys, and these guys look kind of heated at face-off, so I think they're going to go at each other. I mean, I'm not overly impressed by Molina, so I actually like De Silva's side better. But if De Silva flops, then I think Molina has a really good chance to put up a big score.
For sure.
And the other fight I'm looking at targeting is the Jai Herbert Kama Worthy fight. I'm going right back to Jai.
People who have listened to the show before or read our plug before they're tuning out right now after hearing you say his name one more time.
Yeah, Jai needs like a disguise. He needs like the mustache with the glasses to show up to this fight so that no one recognizes him after that beating he took against in his last fight. I mean, we won't even talk about that, but it was a rough grappling match against a BJJ black belt. Now he gets a pure striking battle. I mean, this is perfect for him. This is literally the perfect bounce back spot. Worthy's been knocked out in the first round in his last two fights. All 8 of Worthy's career losses have come early with 7 knockouts and 1 submission. It's a great spot for Jai to bounce back. He's got a significant size advantage over Worthy. Both guys have kind of dubious chins. So, I mean, who knows? Either guy could get caught and go down, but I really like Jai's side. I still think he's a promising prospect, despite the fact that he has absolutely no grappling skills. And, I mean, honestly, this is the perfect matchup for him.
I agree. Not many people are going to be rushing to play the 0-2 fighter, but we'll be there, and he's a perfect type of play. So, speaking of fighters that most people are going to overlook, Jake, we have to talk about our favorite low-owned fighter on the card, and this is really the archetype of our favorite type of play in UFC DFS. Usually, it's a woman fighter. Usually, in their first or second matchup, usually has some sort of ground game. Usually goes overlooked because the betting markets don't give them a big knockout potential, and or they don't have any big fantasy points per game numbers in their profile. Unsurprisingly, Tabitha Ricci. In fact, I even made myself a note when I charted her the first time because in her debut, right, she fought the actual beast and obviously got destroyed up a weight class. And as I was charting her, I was like, wow, if she was facing literally any other opponent, she'd be live. And her charting looks great for DFS. Wrote a note. I said, when she comes back in her second fight, there's a person we definitely want to target. Talk to you Monday or Tuesday. You fully agreed. Glad you're on board. So, Jake, Ricci, you already mentioned her opponent probably shouldn't be in the UFC. But, like, all this adds up, and she's not even probably going to be more than 20% on FanDuel or DraftKings.
I mean, literally everything is aligning perfectly for Ricci here. I mean, like, you've been on it since the Fiora fight, which I'll give you credit to that. Like, you were ahead of the game before Ricci even made her debut. You're like, second fight, that's the girl I want. And, you know, I came in with no bias, and I was like, oh, my God, this is a dream matchup. I literally think that there was some backroom deal where Ricci like agreed to make her debut in a fight she knew she was going to get murdered if she got to pick her next opponent, and I think she picked Oliveira here because this is literally a perfect matchup for Ricci. I mean, she's an armbar specialist going against a girl that's been super prone to getting armbarred. You know, we get the second fight going against the first fight. I mean, everything you said, like it lines up perfectly. We've got a line move in Ricci's favor. She still projects to be just 19% owned. Like maybe if the line keeps moving, that gets in the low 20s. But there's so many expensive fighters on the slate that people want to play. She can't be high owned. I mean, like people, the
Can't.
majority of the field is not going to click Ricci over Mason Jones. You
You
know, it's just
can't.
not
You're
going
just
to
not going
happen.
to, right? It's not going to happen, regardless, right? So you get that type of upside at this ownership. It's what GPP wins are made out of. So go play
Yep.
Ricci. Any other gems you want to throw out to us? I know you mentioned the Silva. He's at what 22% ish. I guess he would certainly qualify as a low owned play that you like.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know we've talked about him a few times, but I think right now we have him around 21, 22% projected ownership. I really like him, man. And again, like you want to temper it. You don't want to go like 50% on underdog, but you definitely want to be over the field on guys like that. I mean, you want to be ahead of the curve, and I love him. I mean, I think he's a great play.
For sure. I'm on board with that too. So let's close out the show with our stream parlay of the week. Jake puts all of his bets. First of all, he breaks down all the fights from a betting perspective at MMADFS.com for free. So go check that out. Get betting DFS implications. Then he puts his best bets in our daily plug behind the paywall. Put some stream parlays. He's been crushing it. So make sure you go check that out. You see it on screen here. All you have to do is scroll down. And we try to pick one of our favorite bets each, put it together for a parlay for our video parlay of the week. I mean, we can't just talk all this shit and not pick Ricci. So I'm gonna cop out. I'm gonna take Ricci inside the distance plus 250 as my side. I'll give you the tough decision, Jake, on your side.
I mean, honestly, man, I think that's the best line on the slate. Like, I absolutely love it. I know that line's on MGM right now. I think a couple other places. I think FanDuel Sportsbook is lagging. They're scared to put it up, but
They don't want
there's
they don't want
definitely
they
a
don't
lot
want
of
this
places.
action.
Yeah, they don't want that smoke. I'm gonna go with my second favorite bet here. That I feel really good about this one, and this is my always bet against Ike Villanueva bet, and that's gonna be Negu Mariano inside the distance at plus 105. I think that's a really safe bet. I don't think Ike can make it past the second round here. This is a great spot for him. So if we add those two together, that's going to be plus 618.
That'll work.
Looks like.
We'll take that. Hell, dude, if Martin Pragnial can take out Ike Villanueva, Negu Mariano certainly can. So I like that side too.
Seriously, man. Yeah, I mean, this has to be Ike's last fight, right? I mean, like, I didn't think he would even be here. I thought he'd already be cut.
Hey, man, we're not complaining. We'll certainly take it. So, all right, so that'll do it for this video. We appreciate everyone. Glad we're back. We're going to do these videos, especially during the NFL season, only if there are a certain amount of fights on the card. Obviously, we'll do it for pay-per-view events, but just make sure you subscribe to the channel to make sure you get notified whenever we upload any MMA videos. If you're here for other sports as well, NFL, NBA, we're doing videos pretty much on a daily basis at YouTube. So make sure you subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. If you like the UFC content, you want to see more of it. Any questions, you can always comment on the video, but the best way to talk to each of us, other members in the community, Occupy Fantasy staff, is in our Discord channel. Just click the join button below the video or occupyfantasy.com/discord for instructions. So you can get more information from Jake at DFS_MMA on Twitter, where he's running Twitter polls and trying to bait people into different opinions. So make sure you follow him there. MMADFS.com is where you can read his full write-ups for free, every single fight with fighter backgrounds, betting, and DFS implications. And OccupyFantasy.com is where you can read the daily plug, utilize the Occupy model, and our lineup builder to build up to 150 lineups automatically using custom rules, using our model, or build lineups by hand with our high risk and low risk lineup criteria. I think I nailed it all. So for Jake, I am Brian. Appreciate everyone listening, and good luck this week.